Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1331B, and today's date is July 13th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Elite Are on the Run, Lists Are Being Compiled. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Craig Hemke. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to the interview. Or you can go to x22report.com site or newsentinel.com. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the video there. You can play it right on the site. Or you can go to Steemit, that's Steemit, STEEMIT.com/@X22 Report, and you can view it right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, it looks like the revised Senate healthcare bill is getting ready to be introduced. No one has really seen it as of yet, but there are early indications that suggest that it will include a version of this amendment from Senator Ted Cruz and Mike Lee. And this has become the sticking point in the negotiations. Now, what this amendment is that it would allow insurers to sell plans that do not meet Obamacare regulations if they also sell a plan that does not meet those rules, called the Consumer Freedom Amendment. And again, whenever they come out with these titles, it is always the opposite. And what this does, it leaves existing plans on the market, but it gives new options so that people can purchase far more affordable health insurance. What does that really mean? That these far more affordable health insurance plans, they're going to be skimpier, cheaper plans, and they're not going to cover much. You're going to be paying quite a bit, and they're not going to be covering that much. And yeah, they're going to be cheaper. Instead of, for a family paying whatever, $1,400, $1,800, you'll pay $900, but whatever is in there, you won't even be able to use because the benefits will not be there. The deductibles will be high, and you'll just be paying out. Now, what's very interesting, and I mentioned this yesterday, that there's going to be an additional $70 billion to help the bailout of insurance companies. Now, we need to remember, already in this fund from Obamacare, there was $100 billion. So now there's $170 billion to help bail out these insurance companies. Because this plan that they're proposing, guess what? It's the same as the Affordable Care Act. I mean, the bill will no longer repeal two of the Affordable Care Act's tax increases on wealthy families, and it won't include a new tax break for healthcare executives. In other words, all of this looks exactly like Obamacare. And all they're doing is saying, listen, we have a cheaper plan here. There's no benefits really, but you'll just be paying. We increased the amount to bail out the insurance companies. Oh, and by the way, we have $45 billion to fight the opioid epidemic. That's about it. I mean, there's not much more to this. And again, they're not doing it for the people. They're doing it for corporations, the health insurance companies, and other entities. That's that. Now, we see this whole thing with Donald Trump Jr., the corporate media, they're still out there trying to make heads or tail of this, trying to push this agenda as far as they possibly can. But something very interesting. Now, Lindsey Graham, who is a frequent critic of Donald Trump, he did say something very interesting. And when you really sit down to think about this, it does make sense. And he said, here's the question. Why would they send the Trump campaign to a lady who knew nothing? So I want to know about that too. It's kind of an odd way to suggest that the Russian government wants to help by sending you somebody that doesn't have any evidence at all. And he's right. If the Russian government, like the corporate media, the deep state, like they're all saying, is trying to work with the Trump family, and they were working with them to help him get into the presidency, why would they send him someone that knows absolutely nothing? It makes no sense. She had absolutely no information. All there was this meeting. Now, we know that she came into this country and her visa was denied in the beginning. But then she was allowed into the country, which we discussed yesterday. Now, who gave her the clearance? Well, it was Loretta Lynch's Justice Department, and they did it under extraordinary circumstances. And this was turned down in the beginning, but then they decided, well, she needs to come in here. So this revelation means it was the Obama Justice Department that enabled the newest and most intriguing figure in the Russian Trump investigation to enter the country without a visa. And now that's a discretionary act that the statute allows the Attorney General to do in extraordinary circumstances. So what was the deal that they made where they said, okay, you're denied, but if we let you in, this is what we need you to do. You can come into the country, but you're going to have to make contact with Trump Jr. Say you have information. We just want the meeting so we can get the FISA warrant. This is what we want you to do. And it seems like they made some type of deal. So just 5 days after the meeting in June of 2016 at Trump Tower with Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, it seems the Justice Department, they lost track of her. And we know that she showed up in Washington in front of a row of House of Foreign Affairs Committee hearing on Russian policy. She also helped arrange an event at the Museum in Washington, D.C., where pro-Russian supporters showed a movie that challenged the underpinnings of the U.S. human rights law known as the Magnitsky Act. And at least 5 congressional staffers and the State Department officials attended that movie showing. We know that she was photographed in McCain's office. And we need to start to wonder, well, wait a minute, who really colluded here? It's starting to look like Obama, Loretta Lynch. It's all the same players once again. Here we are. Actually, as we go further and further and deeper into this, it shows that it's really the Obama administration that was colluding, setting this up, compared to what the Trump organization was doing. And I think what is happening right now is the deep state, the corporate media, they realize, since Trump Jr. released these emails, people are looking into all of this. We don't have the narrative anymore. I mean, they're going to continually try to push it, but now we're caught in this thing, and if they start to investigate, they're going to figure all this stuff out. And what we're seeing right now is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Chuck Grassley, he has invited Trump Jr. to publicly testify about the meeting with the Russian lawyer. And of course, Feinstein, she has some questions for Trump Jr. also. And again, this didn't work out too well with Comey when he testified. Now, the corporate media thought this was going to be fantastic. And it didn't work out that way. It was basically nothing there. Actually, Trump used tactics to make him think that he had recordings, so Comey would kind of stick to the truth of what really happened. Well, when this comes out, people are going to start asking a lot of questions. Where did this person come from? Who gave her this information? Why did she say she had the information? Who did she have contacts with? And when they start looking at this, well, the whole thing is going to be blown wide open. Now, we see the U.S. House, they've introduced a new version of the Russian-Iran sanction bill. The Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives, well, they're pushing their agenda. They have new sanctions for Iran, they have new sanctions for Russia, and they're trying to push this through. We see out in Ukraine right now, the former Prime Minister, Nikolai Azarov, is saying, listen, there is growing dissatisfaction with Poroshenko among the Ukrainian elite. The people are not happy. The economy's falling apart. The IMF, well, they're backing off of Ukraine right now, and it looks like Poroshenko's days are numbered. We might see another coup d'etat, and it might not work out very well for Poroshenko. And this time, this coup d'etat is going to be driven by the people of Ukraine and not by the United States. Tillerson, well, he ended his talks with Qatar, and it looks like nothing was accomplished whatsoever. Now, China, they have deployed troops to its first overseas military base in Africa, in Djibouti. Now, remember, back in 2015, Djibouti kicked the United States out of there, and they accepted China instead. And right now, China, they deployed troops to this base, and this is going to be a support base. It'll be used for logistical purposes such as resupplying ships, taking part in peacekeeping and humanitarian missions off the coast of Yemen and Somalia. And of course, everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, the United States is out there, the deep state is out there, the corporate media is out there saying, well, this is a strategic location for China. They want to take over the world. Well, don't you think the rest of the world was saying the same thing about the United States? When they had a base in Djibouti, the United States has a base in Iran. The United States has a base throughout Africa, throughout Europe, in Australia, Japan. The rest of the world is saying the same exact thing. These deep state individuals, well, they're trying to take over the world. And guess what? They are. China is setting this up, and they're not going to be projecting military individuals into different areas. Actually, what they're doing, this is all part of the One Belt, One Road initiative. And we can see at this point that they're maneuvering in, making economic deals, not by using force or soldiers or terrorism. And Russia is actually doing the same exact thing. Now, the corporate media is out there, and they're saying that the United States, well, we just liberated Mosul in Iraq. Well, we need to go back in time and we need to look at what they really mean by liberation. Because when you look at Mosul, it is horrific. It is a complete and utter disaster. Now remember, going back around June 2014, the Islamic State crossed the Syrian border into Iraq, and once they were in Iraq, they went after Mosul, they went after other oil-rich cities. They even tried to get into Baghdad. Now, the United States, they knew this was happening. Of course, this is their paid mercenary army. And the Islamic State just so happened to have Humvees, helicopters, tanks, artillery, all from the U.S. Now, all throughout this time, the American military sat on its hand. Now remember, back then, Obama was calling the shots. The Pentagon was not. He would tell them what targets to hit and what moves to make. So they were not allowed to make a move on the Islamic State. So they just let the Islamic State spread throughout Iraq and Syria. And basically what happened was they took over all these areas and they did nothing until now. Now, during this time, they dropped around 84,000 bombs in Iraq, and it did absolutely nothing. Actually, the Islamic State expanded their territory. Now, the Iraqi forces, they went in and they got rid of the Islamic State. Now, Trump, Mattis, they joined in on the fight. They dropped a lot of bombs on Mosul and basically obliterated the entire city. I mean, it is a complete mess. And right now, you can see that 80% of the west of Mosul has been completely destroyed. Thousands upon thousands of people are dead, and the entire area is decimated. So this is really not a liberation, it's a destruction of a city. And this is the part the corporate media is not telling everyone, is that the Islamic State, the paid mercenaries, they were controlled by the deep state. They were put into place. This never had to happen. Actually, if we look at all these countries, Yemen, Sudan, Somalia, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, the deep state has caused so much devastation. They've created a refugee crisis like we've never seen since World War II. This was from these individuals, and not one person in the United States stopped it. They all went along with it, and they all used the 2001 authorization for military force, even though it didn't apply to this. Congress did absolutely nothing to stop this, which is unbelievable. And now they have that bill that is being pushed through. Hopefully Congress does pass it, where they revoke the 2001 for authorization for military use. Will it happen? We don't know. But we can see today that Trump and Marcron, they confirm, yes, we're not looking to have Assad step down. We're not looking for regime change. Now, it's not because they're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, especially Marcron. They're doing it because they realize Russia will protect him. Russia will never allow the deep state to have regime change and the coalition forces to have regime change in Syria. Remember, it should be left up to the people. If the people want him, fine. If they don't, that's their choice. It's not up to the United States. So we can see at this point, Trump is out there and he's saying, listen, we're working on a second ceasefire with Russia right now. We had one in the south and we want others. Now, the deep state, they're still pushing their mission. They still want to break apart Syria. This is their goal. Syria and Russia, their goal is to have a united Syria. And this is where the problem's coming in. And we'll have to see how this plays out, because Putin, he understands what is happening right now. He understands that the United States is setting up all these military bases for the Syrian Democratic Forces, which really means they're trying to create this area for the Kurd area, and they're trying to use these bases to do it. Now, Putin understands this. He knows this. Trump knows this also. And I think this is why they're kind of trying to work together. And I know a lot of people think, well, doesn't he have full control? He's the president. He can do whatever he wants. I mean, look what the deep state is doing right now with this Russian collusion and how they can control so many aspects of the government. You think they're all wiped out? No, they're still there. They're still in there, intertwined in the Pentagon. And this is a battle that is continually ongoing. And what is happening, though, is that everything is starting to shift very, very slowly. I mean, you take 2 steps back, 1 step forward, and this continually happens because they don't want him there. He's not part of the Republican Party. He's not part of the Democratic Party. He's not part of any of this. They want him out of here. They don't want him in office. This is completely obvious to everyone. But you can see those individuals within government, well, they are starting to take control of many areas of the government. And we can see already the U.S.-led coalition, well, they're starting to make this database, this list of all the paid mercenaries that have been throughout Syria and Iraq. Right now, it contains around 18,000 names. And U.S. Special Presidential Envoy said in a coalition meeting on Thursday, approximately 36,000 foreign fighters have been recruited by the Islamic State, of which 6,000 are from Western countries. These are paid mercenaries. All those times where they said, oh, all these people are flowing out into the Islamic State, they want to be a part of this. No, they were being paid by the intelligence agencies to go fight in this war. And now they're taking names. So far, 18,000 names, like I said, they're verified names, and they're tracking each and every one of these down. Now, they're also making lists of how they are connected and how they got into this system. Remember, they understand that this was part of the deep state. They realize that this was controlled, supported, and funded by the deep state. Now, can they just come out and say, hey, everyone, the United States, we created this paid mercenary army. We let them loose in Iraq, in Syria. We used Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups to take over these countries. Maybe this would be a good thing. Maybe this would snap people into reality, and people will say, well, wait a minute. But again, the corporate media would shut this down. How would you get that message out? What, he would tweet it out? See, the problem today, right now, is the corporate media still has that control where they're controlling what news is out there and what news isn't out there. I mean, we have the alternative media, but we know that Google, we know that YouTube, we know that Twitter, well, they're trying to suppress all of this. So the only voice you hear is the corporate media because they don't want any other information to get out there. This is why it's so difficult. Yes, you could be listening to me, you can be listening to many other individuals saying, yes, we need to get the word out. But when you speak to your neighbor and you speak to your friend, you speak to your relatives, they don't hear any of this because when you are in an airport or you're in a shopping center, what's usually playing on the television? It's these corporate media news stations blurting out their propaganda. And this is what people are hearing every day. You take a cab, you take a bus or anything else, you still hear this. You don't hear the alternative media. This is why it's such a problem. I mean, more and more people are flocking, but they have to go specifically to these areas to listen. Where the corporate media, they're just everywhere. Now, if the alternative media, if we were on TV and we were in all these different locations, it'd be a different story. This is why it is so tough to convince people. Because once again, yes, Trump can tweet something out, but again, the corporate media makes fun of the tweets. The corporate media tries to create the illusion and create a new story about what he's really trying to say. And when he's trying to say fake news, when he's trying to say all these things, he really means it. They're trying to make him look like he's crazy. Just think about when the alternative media started. When you would tell someone, oh, I'm listening to this individual, and they would laugh at you. They said, that's just crazy. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because that's not what I heard on the news. Why wouldn't they tell me all this on the news? This is what people would say. They're still saying it. And this is why this is such a huge fight and a very difficult fight. But we can see there are certain things that are changing. We can see that things are moving in the right direction. Yes, it's going to seem like sometimes we're taking a couple steps back, but when we look at the big picture, you can see the deep state, the elite, the bad guys. Well, it's getting harder and harder for them to prove their point because they're being called out on it by more and more individuals because these individuals are doing a little bit of research and they're saying, no, this is not true. This is fake. And then if you notice, Trump does pick up some of this and he tweets it out. Then the corporate media, they have to defend themselves of where are your sources? Where did you get this information? Can you verify this? Just like Comey's memo. They never even saw it. Actually, the emails from Trump Jr., they never saw those either. They were read to them. So this is a battle that will continue on. And we know that the deep state, the elite, the central banks, they're trying to keep their narrative. They still want control. And this is going to be a battle that is going to continue on. It's not just going to end. It will eventually, but we can see that it's moving very slowly. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.